What's up, everybody? This is Bobby D here. Bobby D here with another podcast to talk with someone in the Georgia Indy wrestling scene. One of my good friends, Mr. Curtis Coleman.
3, 2, 1.
Like I said, here we go. We got Mr. Curtis Coleman, one of my good friends here. So let's go ahead and bring him onto the stage. Mr. Curtis, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself, Bobby?
I can't complain. It won't do any good anyway, right? You know, we're in 2025 now, and it seems like no matter how much things change, things stay the same, right?
Exactly. Plus, if you complain, you'll fit right in.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, I think we're already talking about the Georgia Indy wrestling scene already, and we're only, what, 5 seconds into this?
Yeah.
So the reason yeah, exactly. The reason I wanted to bring you on here is one thing that I've been seeing a lot online lately is, one thing that caught my eye was a lot of people were kind of being like, Curtis Coleman is becoming the no-show guy in the Georgia indie wrestling scene. But what I remembered is when we were at Marcus's wedding, or Jared's wedding. I don't know what name to use anymore with him. We were at his wedding. We got to sit down and talk for a couple of hours, and I think we're both really on the same page when it comes to wrestling really not being the center of our lives anymore, really. So I really wanted to talk to you about it, because I really was interested in the stuff you had to say, when we talked about it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't mind talking about it at all.
Yeah. But like, we talk about, stuff we've talked about, not on the camera. We've talked about family stuff. We've talked about, but it seems like I remember the first year I was in the wrestling business back in 2012 when I remember Rick came to the gym, and we were all practicing, and it was me, it was Jake Hughes, it was Rod Bolt, and Chad Hollywood. And I remember Rick asking us when he was there, and I know why he asked this, but he's like, what do you want to get out of wrestling? And I remember Jake was like, I think he was like, he wants to be the next Hulk Hogan, or he wants people to forget about Hulk Hogan or something like that. Kind of like last night on Netflix when Hogan got booed out of the building. but that was his response. But this was like, what, 13 years ago at this point. And then he gets to Rod, and Rod was like, dude, I'm just having a little fun, but I don't look at this as a career. And Rick got so mad about it, almost triggered, he got so mad about it. But I understood it because, heck, I was 32 when I first got into wrestling. So it wasn't a thing for me. It wasn't like, I mean, now don't get me wrong. If NXT or Paul Levesque calls me or something, I'm definitely going to think about it. But I was also thinking realistically as well, but most guys, they think, oh, got to get 100%, right? Sacrifice, kind of like the John Cena type mentality, screw family, right? It's all about wrestling.
Exactly.
I mean, but that doesn't happen for everyone, right?
So with me is, so when people ask me to come wrestle, I get it a lot. And when when they ask me to wrestle, I don't think, so they think that I'm being the nice guy when I say yeah, but really I intend on coming to the show. But I mean, I need to start responding. Yeah, the card needs to say subject to change though, because if my wife tells me, hey, I want to go to the movies, or there's this concert or this or that, even if it's 1 minute before the show, I'm choosing her and my kids over wrestling. It's either, so I showed up to 3 or 4 shows every weekend for a long time. You know this. I put in some hard work, went from 340 pounds to 230, lean and jacked. And I put so much time and effort into wrestling, not just to be one of the boys in the back, but because I loved it. And Rick seen something in me. So I could never be upset with Rick ever, because Rick, honestly, he was going to make me the next Anarchy champion. He was going to, he was big on me, and he took my career from here to here because he's seen what I was doing, not because of any kiss butt situation. But I got hurt. I hurt my back, and I got used to. My wife is my best friend. She's my best friend in the whole world. We don't keep secrets. We don't lie to each other. If I mess up, she knows about it. If she mess up, I know about it. She is my best friend. I'm gonna choose her every time. She has supported me so much. So I'm not gonna choose wrestling anymore, especially after being hurt and hanging out with her. And then if my kids has got wrestling tournaments, I'm not gonna cut them short or leave on their. My kids are really good at wrestling. They go to the championship
Mhm.
match every time.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not leaving on a championship match to go wrestle some guy that really doesn't care about me. So,
Yeah.
and let's be honest, is this wrestling really the brotherhood that everybody talks about?
That is the question, isn't it? It is the question because before we come on here, we were talking about a lot of that as far as after 13 years, I've come to the realization that 95% of the brothers, they're not really your brother. They want something from you, and I get that that's kind of the way things work a lot of times when it comes to wrestling and just other things. But like you said, I mean, if you put it in that perspective, like you just said, your wife is your best friend. You keep no secrets from her. Your kids are your life, which that's being a great father in a family. Versus, I could go over here and go into a cold locker room with a bunch of guys that are two faced that can, that like you because they need something from you. But if you had nothing to offer, they would hate your guts. And you could go wrestle a guy that could potentially hurt you. Like you said, you could hurt your back and come home and your wife and kids are already in bed. I mean, I can definitely see that. And that's, like I said, that's why I wanted to talk to you about all this, because I think a lot of people get that misconception. And I get it when you're young. When I was young, I was the same way. I remember when Chad Silva used to be like, I got to go home and put my kids in bed. I made fun of that, but I made fun of that as a single guy with no kids. I wouldn't make fun of that anymore because now I have a family and a 4-year-old that, like you just said, like if she goes, "Hey dad, I want to go see the new Trolls movie," or "I want to go see the new Sonic movie," or
Mm-hmm.
something, and I'm supposed to wrestle some guy that could potentially hurt me because I'm getting to the point to where I'm kind of injury prone at this point.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to go sit in a theater seat for 3 hours because I won't hurt his back. And plus, my daughter's going to remember that versus the guy will be like, "Well, that's just some guy wrestled back in some local place in commerce or something. But
yeah, exactly.
I get
Well,
that. And that's
and
that's
like
what I love
people,
about you.
so we're supposed to be superhuman too. Like
Yeah.
wrestling is not the same, and I'm not gonna down all of wrestling because I love it, but Georgia is stuck in their ways, and some other states are too, but Georgia especially is stuck in a certain way that they don't believe in evolving. Like, and the locker room vets just have to have something to criticize, even if they don't have something to criticize. Like, some guy said to me last time I wrestled, I think it was Southern Fried. They came up to me, and he's a well known name, so I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want no. Well, I don't care if I have beef, but I don't want no drama in my life because I have a
Yeah.
family and kids. I'd just rather focus on them. But
I
he was like,
understand.
"Why do you do 3 moonsaults?" That's my thing. Like, it's like, he's like, but it's like an MMA fight. Why would you punch somebody in the gut 3 times and then run to the ropes? Just doesn't make sense. But then he goes out there and sits Indian styles and starts clapping after a move instead of going for the pin and the win. And I'm like, you just contradicted everything you criticized me on. And then, like, I only had a minute to work. I had to show something off so I could get back in the building. And, anyways, they talk about no showing and the veterans in the back and stuff like that, but we're supposed to be superhumans and we're not anymore. How many guys no show the gym 5 days a week, then show up on the weekend and they're like, "Hey, you got so and so. Oh man, it's going to be an easy night. This is great. It's going to be so easy." I'm like, why do you want it easy? Why don't
Yeah.
you want the best match on the card? Why don't you want a 5-star match every time you go out there? I know some storylines don't call for it. Some storylines calls for you to lose in 8 seconds. I had a minute to work at Southern Fried. I guarantee it was probably one of the best minutes they've ever seen because I went hard. But nobody does that anymore. They want the easy night. They want to hang out with the boys in the back. They want to. It's really hard to be anything in wrestling, which I climbed to the top pretty fast through hard work, and you don't see that much. Everybody's beefing with each other, and everybody's fighting for these awards, but nobody wants to put on a great show anymore.
Yeah, it's almost like they talk about that once you get older, it's not necessarily about uh, putting on a great show. It's just about making money. And I think that stems from the people that go, "Oh, it's an easy night." A lot of these guys, they just want to get in, get paid, and go home. I guess like
Mm-hmm.
you and hang out with the boys because I mean we're getting older, and I remember back in my 20s and really early 30s, I liked hanging out with people, but I guess it's more of kind of holding on to that for a second, but also feeling like that you're getting something for it, I guess. I don't know, the getting paid part. I mean, because I know a lot of guys that I've talked to are like, they just pin me, pay me, right? And then they go home and stuff. And that,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's almost like the passion. The passion is lost
It's
a lot
gone.
of times. And it becomes, and like you said about the awards, you touched on that. So since you opened that door, I'm gonna walk through it for a second. Most of the time, and I'm not talking about just certain awards, I'm talking about awards in general. It's a popularity contest. It really
Mm-hmm.
comes down to who's giving out the award versus who's receiving the award. And most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you're, it fits. It's like you can look at the award and go, well, of course he got it, or of course she got it, of course they got it. Because who's presenting them. I mean, it's like me and who, Mr. Platinum. I don't think it'll be a cold day in hell before I ever receive an award for him, if you know what I mean. And if right?
Exactly.
So it's a popularity contest, but that doesn't take away from the fact of what I've given to this business for the last 13 years. Hell, it's almost like you said, I did it for the love. I did it because I want, like when I wrestled Slim, Jeremy, 10 years ago, I was so driven, and I don't, and we got some accolades, we said match of the year and stuff like that. But I feel like the reason that was said is because I felt like I had something to prove. I mean, Jeremy was definitely a phenomenal worker, and he still is.
Oh yeah.
And he's made it to some places, but
But I
I felt like the
guarantee
underdog.
I
Yeah.
guarantee also he wouldn't put wrestling over his. He is a good dad. He
Yes.
is
Yeah.
all about that little girl, and he
Yes.
wouldn't put wrestling over her. I mean, and he
No.
gets paid, and he gets paid well because he's a big name now. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if he gets paid well, but I'm pretty sure he would, especially like he's Slim J is more of a straight up dude than a wrestler to me. He is
Mhm.
the nicest human being. He is a great dad. And like me and you talked about before, people only care about wrestling, but who's reaching out to you when you're having a baby? Like, you remember, like, people try to scare you. They do. Oh, it's going to change your life. You're going to have to quit that wrestling. You're going to have to do what I wrote you. I wrote Slim J. I wrote Scott Mason and plenty more others. And I'm like, it's the best thing in the world. It's the hardest job, but it's the most rewarding. Yeah, you got to cut some time off. You got to give up some things like missing shows. Only if your priorities are right. Let me put that another way. A lot of people have kids, and they're like, "Oh, I got to hang out with this so and so and back." But dude, I value my time as a dad on Earth, and I don't want to be known as a wrestler. I don't want my kids going to school and saying my dad's a wrestler. I want them going to school and say my dad's a jerk because he puts me through all these workouts to make sure I achieve my goals, or my dad made me clean my room, or my dad took me to the movies, my dad took me to the trampoline park. That's what I want my kids to really know me as, and I really don't care if people say I know show because it's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, it is priority. And like you, and I want to touch on something what you said, people try to scare you. They try to be like,
Hmm.
oh, having kids and getting a family, it's the toughest thing. And you're going to listen to your wife or your girlfriend. And, you're
Hmm.
going to, you should, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? And they did the same thing to me 4 years ago, but honest to goodness, not many people talked about the positive side of having kids and having a family. And
Hmm.
the fact that maybe, just maybe, that the family and the kid thing will turn out better for you than wrestling, than trying to go out there and prove yourself to what? Not
Hmm.
everybody makes it, but everybody thinks they can make it. It's like playing the lottery. You have a better chance of dying on the way to getting your lottery ticket than you do winning the lottery and stuff. But people still happen, but it's just that hope, I guess. They all think, well, if I just sacrifice now, then I can do it later. And what if it doesn't work out? Your kids are going to
Well, it
remember that. Your
becomes
kids are going to remember.
wrestling in Georgia becomes more about pleasing the boys than it does about pleasing the fans. And now it's like the fans are
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
boys. 90% of
Mm-hmm.
fans are one of the boys. Like, and I'm not shaming anybody because the fans that are involved, I love them to death. But I remember being a part of the show and just going to watch wrestling, not even being a part of it, just going to watch. And some kid saw me and he was like, "That's Curtis." And then he came over and he's like, "Can you play action figures with me?" And loved it, man, because I was like his hero. But now it's like, okay, let's, for instance, and I know they won't get mad at this because Alex and Mason are, really close. Like, we went to the same school, me and Alex. I think I'm a couple grades younger than him. Uh, they actually bought a dog from me. Good people, but it's like, and I think Mason belongs in the ring because he's a natural. But it's like, why are we allowing and it's not just Mason. Mason deserves to be there. But why are we allowing everybody? And I'm not going to mention any other names because I don't want to hurt everybody's feelings. But why are we allowing everybody to be a part of wrestling? Because I remember when I first started, a guy's like, you got to have a separate relationship with the fans. You can't, we're superhuman to them. It's not like that no more. It is not like that anymore because everybody can be a wrestler now.
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, yeah, I remember like I keep saying, 13 years, it doesn't seem like 13 years, but going from how things were in 2011, 2012 to, like you just said, how things are in 2025, it is different. I mean, and I'd like to think that the OSWA, with me and you and the guys, the core guys that wrestled OSWA, we kind of had a part in that in a way, because it could be argued that, we opened that door when everybody was trying to keep it shut. But it's like they criticized us so much for
Mhm.
the things that we did, but you find them doing the exact same things that we did, but now that they're doing it, it's okay. Like you said, like anybody can be a wrestler. I mean, I'm very conflicted with that, because part of me is like, I want everybody to accomplish their dreams, because I'll get people message me, be like, hey Bobby, I got so and so's kid that wants that, he's a big wrestling fan. It's his dream to do something like that. And of course, the kid side of me wants to see a kid get that dream, even if it's for like a second. But then the wrestling part of me is kind of like, well, it should be a little harder, I guess, to get over on the other side of the guardrail. And I kind of think that what's coming down to now is, like you said, it's really not wrestling for the fans, which it should be. The
Mhm.
fans and the workers are blurred now, because a lot of guys will go out there and wrestle a match, but they're not wrestling for the 10-year-old kid in the front row. They're wrestling for the boys in the back to be like, hey, did you see that move I did? Or did you see this? And did you see that? And wants to pop the boys. And I think that's where we're lost now, because it's not about the boys. The boys, I mean, maybe a promoter, maybe you're trying to get someone to notice you, but I mean, I think the fans are the ones that are going to remember the thing. The promoters probably like, yeah, you're just another guy that I'm paying to make me money, I guess, or to
Speaking
lose
of
me money.
paying, goodness gracious. So I ran a show, I helped run a show,
Hmm.
and people that ain't even been in the business a year be like, yeah, my fee is $100. I'm like, what? Or they will message. So they'll, and I'll go ahead and say his name because he don't care. They'll message Shane a million times. Hey, this is
Uh-huh.
my resume, begging to be on the show. Then Shane will be like, hey, we had a call out. You can come and be a part of the show if you want. Okay, my fee is this. What? You you begged us? You
Yeah.
begged
Yeah.
us. You sent us everything for months, and then we said, here's you a shot, and then you're like, yeah, but you got to pay me this much. Like, we didn't beg
Yeah.
you. We didn't care about you. Like,
Yeah. It's a little, yeah, there's a little mixed up priorities because they present it, like you just said, they present it in the way that they, they want to because that's what their trainers told them to do, to try to get in somehow. But then they totally just mess that all up then because they think, I guess somebody else told them, oh, but you're worth this and you should get what you're worth. And I'm a big believer in that. I think you should pay people what they're worth, but most people, and I got criticized for this for not paying everybody, but I pay you what you're worth. I mean,
yeah.
that's what gets me about these guys now. Like, okay, I'm going to use Zach Daniels, old, Zach Daniels. I know that's a name we hadn't heard in a long time. Back when I first started, I always paid Zach Daniels because, and the reason I did that was because there was a family that would always message me. This was early, first couple years of the OSWA. They would
Hmm.
always message me and they would go, "Is Zach Daniels going to be at the show?" And I would say yes or no. And they would bring about 4 or 5 people and they would pay the full price, $10. They weren't like, oh, get me in for free or get me in for a discount. So I knew that Zach was drawing. So that's what I
Yeah.
mean by pay what you're worth. If you're out there hustling and you're out there getting people to come see you, not come to the show, come see you. But these
Yeah.
guys nowadays, they want, like you said, they want $100 when they're not worth $10.
Exactly.
And
It's
and
like
and then
a
they get
job.
mad. They get mad and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna, the promoter don't pay me and I work for free and they're making me do all this work." And I'm like, "Sell
Well,
yourself,
if you
man."
work for a warehouse or something and you're not making production or you're not making the company money, they don't need you. So, like, if you come to a show and there's only 3 fans and you didn't promote yourself or invite as many people as you can to that show, you didn't do your job. You didn't make production that day. Why should I pay you for? I drew 3 fans. I'm going to go in debt, renting the ring, drawing 3 fans because nobody gave a shit to see you. And that's what wrestlers don't understand. They got a set booking fee. How about get a job? I work two. This is no joke, and I don't know how many wrestlers can say this. I work 2 jobs. I own 2 brand new cars, one that my son wrecked. I have a nice home, like a nice 2-story house that's all in my name while wrestling. That's what I'm talking about, getting your priorities straight.
Yeah.
Like, so, and most people that do have a 2-story house, they live with their mom. Not saying that's everybody, but let's say it's a lot of people. And like, I'd rather just, I can't take the chance all the time. And I do some stupid stuff in the ring because I'm going out for the big match. I want to be the best match on the card. I don't care if I'm wrestling a kid that's only been wrestling 2 days. I want the best match on the card.
Hmm.
And or I want the best ever how many minutes you give me. So if you give me 2 minutes, I want the best 2 minutes of the night. I'm gonna make it the best 2 minutes of the night, even if it's just a comedy show. But people don't understand. I still gotta go to work on Monday. I still gotta go to gym Monday night, Monday morning. Then I gotta go. Then 3 days a week I work a whole night shift, so I don't sleep for 72 hours because I work 12 hours during the day, 12 hours at night, going from one job to the next, just like that. And just to make sure my family lives comfortably and my kids go to college. People don't understand that kind of mentality and priorities, but then they're like, hey, I need $10 for gas. You need 10. Where do you live? An hour from here. $10 ain't gonna help you, brother. Like, why do you need $10 from me? You need a hot dog or something? Like, what happened to paying your dues? Like, nobody sets up and tears down the ring. Nobody, like, people that's only been wrestling less than a year, they get with the right crowd and they think they're superstars.
That's it. That's what it is right there. It's the click. I know click is one of the most overused stereotype cliche things in wrestling, but I mean, it's
But
true.
we're in
It's
Georgia,
the
though.
click. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, like you
Georgia
said
has the
about,
biggest clicks.
yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And I've still tried to figure that out. Why, like why it seems to be worse in Georgia than it is anywhere else. Because that's what a lot of people say is get out of Georgia, go somewhere else, go to another state. And it is like night and day sometimes. But
In Puerto
yeah,
Rico, I'm like, Puerto Rico, I swear, they treat me like I'm John Cena. Fans, the people, like, the fans has never seen me before. I show up there like, oh my gosh, that's Curtis Coleman. I'm like, they advertised me that much in Puerto Rico? When I go to Puerto Rico, I swear, everything's paid for. Plane, food, uh, stay, everything. They Uber me back and forth to the venue. They treat me like I'm gold there.
yeah,
And I give them everything I have. So I go outside of Georgia. It's not about, and they didn't even know me. They looked me up. They love what they seen. They advertised me like crazy. I'm talking about I was on a billboard in Puerto Rico when I drove to the venue. It was on a billboard on the main highway, and I was like, "Don't ask me the name of the highways because I don't know none of their highways and roads are weird. It's way
yeah,
different."
they are,
And
they,
it was just amazing, and it's all because I got out of Georgia. Like when I wrestled in South Carolina, the it's the talent there in South Carolina. Some places is top notch. Some places it's just way below average. It's like, is this kid really a wrestler? But he's trying his hardest, and nobody's ridiculing him. In Georgia, they would dog him in the locker room.
and that's sad. That's
Mm-hmm.
sad. It's almost an insecurity thing.
Yep.
But
We banned the
like you,
greenhorn rule, the greenhorn word in our locker room at OSWA. You
yeah,
remember that?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one thing too. Like with OSWA, when we were first doing everything, um, we took a lot of people that no one would give a chance to, as far as, and I always wondered, this one thing, I'm not trying to toot, well, I am, but not trying to do
Go
it
ahead.
hard. But I remembered the first 2 or 3 years. When did you come in? What year did you come in? Was it 2014 or?
Yeah, 14. It might have been
Okay.
13.
Okay. Yeah, because I know we started at the very end of 2012. We had a decent year, 2013. We started really getting steam in 14, 15, 16 were great. But anyway, I always wondered, in the first couple of years, people would come up to me, and these are people that worked for other places. They're like, I love it here. I love the OSWA.
Mm-hmm.
This, that, and the other. And me being a greenhorn in wrestling, I mean, I didn't understand that. I was like, what do you mean? I don't get what we're doing that's so great. And now, like you just said, I finally figured out that it's because we didn't do the typical stuck in our ways vet greenhorn type of
Mm-hmm.
crap. Because when we would bring vets in, I'm not going to mention any of these vets names, but once we started injecting some vets into I starting to see that, just how insecure they were, just how, if you didn't book them, they would basically leave you not life threatening voicemails and saying they're going to park the motorcycle gang on the streets so no one could come to the show and stuff. And I'm just like, wow. And I finally that was my first dose of realizing that they're that is the mentality, and the fact that, like you said, we didn't use green worn. We were very PG. We did everything with a very clean slate, and we were able to do that. So we were able to take a lot of liberties. We would do the characters. We did Dollar Mania. We did a lot of stuff that people would just criticize the crap out of us for, but it worked. And I realized then after a while, I was like, that's why everybody's like, oh, we like OSWAs, because they felt like a person. They felt important no matter who they were. They felt important. We
Well,
couldn't get to everybody. And of course,
OSWA is the reason, like, I trained the guys that I did train. And it was because I learned, like, at OSWA. So I learned that you got to make it fun. Nobody wants to go to training. I know this the old school way, but wrestling has evolved. Why go to training and just get your butt kicked or run for 6 hours straight when the trainer cannot run the ropes one time? So
yeah,
I started training kids, and they would go somewhere else and they'd be like, oh, these kids suck. I can have a 5-star match with them. Why can't you? And like Nikki Hyde, a lot of people didn't want to give him a chance. He's turning out to be a decent wrestler.
yeah, he is.
I love the kid. And Jason Maddox, Justin Sane, one
Yeah,
of the people I'm closest to. I hardly ever respond to him because I'm always busy. But he the he didn't start his career until he was 40 something years old, and he is so appreciative to be able to do what he's done in wrestling in such a
yeah,
short time and live out a dream that people wouldn't have gave someone that old a chance.
yeah,
And I think he owned his gimmick. Like, was he the best wrestler in the world? I mean, I'm not going to say no, but I'm also not going to say yes. But he owned his gimmick and he loved what he did. I like guys like that. I'd rather have a guy like that than somebody that's on top of their game in Georgia act like their butt don't stink.
yeah, definitely. The one thing, like Jason was one of those guys as well that he kind of said the same thing, but in the different, like later on, like I talk about the first couple years OSWA, but now kind of having the tenure and listen to these guys and you still hear it. Like when he came to OSWA, he was like, I like this place. And I was like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Not in a condescending way, but like, I mean, I'm curious. And he's like, there's no drama. And I was like, well, there's always going to be a little drama, but I mean, we try not to have the unnecessary, like you said, the unnecessary drama, the crap
Mm-hmm.
don't stink drama. Like guy walks in and puts his little hand out. Oh, you kiss my ring, and and I'm the crap, and I'm the Brock Lesnar of the locker room, and
Yeah.
I'm Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon all in one, and blah blah blah. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And he was like, "There's no drama," and I like Jason. Like you said, if I had my pick between Justin Sane and I don't know, just name, you can name a bunch of guys that that are really good, but I'd rather have Justin Sane because guy's loyal. He's appreciative. He's humble. He's unassuming. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's kind of what I want around me. You know, I don't. If the guys think that they can crap don't stink and they can go make it somewhere else, go for it.
Yep.
Whatever. But like you said, it's all in. They always get, and this is one thing we touched on earlier. They always get with the certain crowd, the clique, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I always feel like things change. Things change. That they're a certain person, and then all of a sudden they've got somebody in their ear, and then they start, then comes all the stuff that you start to expect, like, okay,
Yeah.
now they're starting to fall in line, now they're starting to be like, yep. And I see it a lot on my Facebook. I see it so much with these
Oh yeah.
guys, and we talk about awards, we talk, we got that award show coming up, and everybody makes a big deal about it, whether they're on the bracket, whether they're not on the bracket. And to me, it's just a lot of why? It
Yeah.
confuses me a lot of times. Like, why? I mean,
Oh, I fell
yeah,
into the trap too. I fell into the award trap too because when I was at the highest point, I was doing well, and this is no joke. So the award ceremony was actually pretty cool until I got in all this good shape. I did really well, right? and I was looking good, doing all these cool moves. They found clips of me when I was 340 pounds, and they only played those clips. Like from my greenhorn days, there's like, and up for this award, Curtis Coleman. And it was like, y'all made me look like absolute, y'all did that shit on purpose.
Do you
And I
think
was
they
like,
did that
man,
on purpose?
I don't know if they did or not. Maybe it was they typed in my name as the first thing. But to me it was like, God, dude, like, have y'all not seen me? I'm probably the most jacked one in this whole like out of all
Yeah.
your wrestlers of the years and everything. I'm the most jacked guy here. I'm the only guy that could
Yeah.
probably bench 500 pounds and run a 4.4 and grab a 10-foot rim. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I'm over 250 plus pounds, all muscle, and which to this morning I weighed in at 272. I don't know if you know this, but I have a coach. I'm doing bodybuilding, so I'm
Yeah.
dedicating most of my time to bodybuilding, and I'm only going to wrestle 2 shows for a while, which is going to be Wrestle America and Palmetto Championship Wrestling, which is in South Carolina with Ethan Case. So I'll
Yeah.
be working those 2 shows, only those 2 shows every month for until I walk on stage either in the summer or fall. Right now he's got me bulking, so I'll be 280 before I do a cut. But I love it. It's hard. I hate food. He's got me eating
Yeah.
so much. But
Uh-huh.
back on topic, I went to this award show and man, it was amazing. And then I don't want to trash the award show, but I fell into a trap because this is no joke. One of the guys that counts the votes, and I'm not lying. People are like, "Oh, that's a lie," because I'm on the ballot. He legit came up to me and said, "We had to give it to the other guy, uh, but we're gonna get you in more categories next year." How are you? Isn't that a voting situation? You're gonna get me in more categories, and I'm like, okay. And my wife's standing right there, and I'm like, I was actually having a good time until somebody told me that. I was okay
Yep.
because the guy I lost to, let me be honest, he is super good. So, he's got the best facial expressions in professional wrestling, and I say in the whole world to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's in ROH. He's went on and did some big things, and he's still doing big things. He's a total savage. He's good,
Yeah.
but when it was told to me like that, I was like, hmm, yeah. And then I got real bitter for a while. I gave up on wrestling, and then you know Rick is. I can't say enough good things about Rick because Rick set me to the side. He's like, you know what you are. You got to let that go. And he literally set me straight because Rick's passionate. He don't mind cussing someone out. He don't mind telling you how it is backstage. A lot of people don't agree with it, but he's done a lot for me. So I
Yeah.
but not as much as OSWA. And I'm not saying that because I'm on the podcast with you, but for what 7 years I
Yeah.
was just OSWA only, and I
Yeah.
turned down a lot of shows.
Yeah. And what's funny about that, and I'm gonna plug you real quick, is you are one of the only guys that was in OSWA, and when you left, you didn't forget where you came from, because there's a lot of guys that went to OSWA, and they did their thing, and they might, I just don't hear about it, but like I feel like that they kind of, once they got with other people, the clicks, whatever, they decided, I don't know if they were told the OSWA wasn't good or secretly trashed us behind our back or whatever. But I mean, you're one of the only ones that I feel like that, and I don't coach you doing this. I don't tell you to do
Huh.
this. You do it
Actually,
on
we
your own
hardly ever
accord.
talk.
Yeah. And I always will appreciate about you. Just like our match that we did last August or a couple of Augusts ago.
Hmm.
I appreciate it, and I'm at a point in my career, I just want important, not necessarily good matches, but I want good matches, but I want important matches to me that I can look back
Hmm.
on when I finally go, I can't do this anymore. I want to be like, I had fun. Like you said, it's all about fun. And that's kind of what OSWA was built on. I told everybody that started with OSWA, just want to have some fun. And we got criticized all to hell because we're supposed to be serious. And to the point
Mm-hmm.
where I just used to tell people, like I used to use Joker's line, why so serious? And
Uh-huh.
but like you said about, I'm gonna, talk about Rick for just a second. What people don't understand, and I know Rick is a, how do I put this? A very colorful and controversial topic.
Yes.
And everybody's got their feelings about Rick. And that's why I haven't said his last name and I haven't said his real name. Everybody knows who Rick is. If you know, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up with Rick. I grew up with him, and nobody ever realizes that because Rick got into the wrestling business immediately. Like he was in high school. I remember he was about 4 or 5 grades ahead of me, and so I remember he wrestled in high school, and Coach Brooks was his coach and my coach. And I remember the stories that I heard from Rick, and I remember the stories I heard from Coach Brooks about, Rick was trying to get into professional wrestling, and he was trying to get, and it at the cost of getting criticized to the point to where he pretty much left. And I don't quote me on this because I don't know exactly what happened, where he chose professional wrestling over amateur wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Brooks, if anybody knows who Coach Brooks is, he's very, very old school. He's very, very like, very serious, and I remember when I went to a Monday Nitro and missed a wrestling practice, I got a lot of crap for that from him. But anyway, I remember sitting and watching pay-per-views with Rick, and at my house and sitting and watching. I remember Royal Rumble 94, the one where Brett and Lex co-won it. And he had already, and this was what, in 94, he was already in the business because he was kind of dropping some hints. Cause I mean, at that point, I was 14. I knew what wrestling was, I knew it was entertainment, and he was dropping hints because Bret Hart was my guy. I wanted Bret to win. And he kept going, just watch. And that's one of my core memories of Rick, before he officially got in. I remember that being there for Rick's first match, his
Mm-hmm.
first ever match. And it was because a guy no showed the event, ironically. And it was
So no
it was
shows
one of
work for
the,
certain people.
yeah, yeah. And Rick, he wasn't even going to wrestle, and he was in the opening match. He was the opening match. And I still remember me and my dad were there watching him. So I have a different memory of Rick than a lot of people that, like I said, the controversial part, the colorful part. But you're right about one thing. Rick will tell you like it is.
Mm-hmm.
If he thinks it sucks, it sucks. If he thinks it's good, it's good. I remember him coming and watching some of my matches when I finally got into it. And he'd be like, yeah, you and I forgot, Jesse James, I think was his name, the guy at MVW. He's like, yeah, you and Jesse James, there's only a match worth watching. I'm like, really? But then I took that at face value because, like you said, he don't tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what you
Mm-hmm.
need to hear. And I appreciated all that. And, so
I will
people
say
can
this.
criticize
I've
him all
seen
day
him
long, but everybody's got a different opinion about everybody. So,
I have seen him criticize people to their face.
mhm.
Seen it in meetings. I've seen him tell people off. He has never once criticized anything about me. And that's what's wild because I would go to him, I'd be like, is this what you wanted? This what you wanted? The only thing he ever criticized for me for was beating myself up after that award show. He jumped my butt. It was at Southern Friday. He pulled me out back and he said, you gotta let it go. You got something. But if it wasn't for the injury, I would still be like, if it wasn't for the injury, I would be in the UK wrestling right now. And I was gonna stay for about 3 months and then I was gonna go back. And
Mhm.
or I would be in Canada or Japan. And I was climbing from there. And the if it wasn't for the injury, I'd probably wouldn't be no show Curtis Coleman. I would actually be, everybody be like, "Hey, can you come to this show?" No, I'm double booked already. It would be that. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
injured, and my priorities changed.
Yeah.
And when people book me, I have every intent to be there. Now, if something comes up with my family, I'm not going to make it because now I have reversed what they encouraged me to do, which they encouraged me to come back to wrestling, get in shape, and really go hard at it. Now, my wife is my teammate in bodybuilding. She cooks for me, she does everything for me. My wife's the best. I don't care what anybody says. You have to think that about your wife, but my wife is the best for me.
Yeah.
We have the same values, everything, and she backs me 1000%, even though she can be mean sometimes. She backs me 1000%. She cooks
Mhm.
my meals. She buys my meals. She makes sure that I don't eat bad, and she makes sure that I'm doing my gym schedule. She is on me, and I'm paying, a lot of money for my coach. It's not one of those just, oh, I found a coach in the gym. No, this is actually a real bodybuilding coach. And if I have to no show, now my priorities change. When it comes show day, if I can't be there, have a backup plan. And I tell people ahead of time, have a backup plan, have a backup plan. And I'll tell them straight up, I'm going on a date with my wife. My kid's tournament's taking too long. My
Mhm.
kid got in a wreck. I got to fix his car. I will tell them straight up that this is why
Yeah.
I'm not coming. And as I don't beat around the bush, I don't make up lies, but that's the main thing. And the thing is, we was talking about Rick. He's always supported that part of me. He's like, "You put your wife and kids first. I'll never say anything bad about you." And I was like, "I appreciate that."
Yeah. Well, it's like me, like you said, the backup plan. I mean, and this isn't a shot at you at all, but I understand you. I understand, that you might not be at the show. I mean, I know we had that show back in November. It was you versus Tower again. We tried to do it and you got injured. Then we were going to do it at the one night only event and you couldn't make it, but I got it. I get it. And
Mhm.
I might kid around with you and play around with you a little bit, but all in all, I definitely understand where you're coming from. I might be like, yeah, no show Curtis, ha 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 ha,
Yeah,
and
no,
with the
which is
boys
fine.
and
I
stuff.
love that.
But I've always been the type of person I'd never say anything behind somebody's back that I wouldn't be willing to say to their face.
Yeah.
But it's just it is what it is. And again, like I said, it took me a while to figure that out, what you had already figured out. It took me a second, it took me having a kid. It took me, getting the family stuff because I used to say that stuff to people way back. I'd get mad at them because they'd leave because we talked
Hmm.
about, not setting up the ring because that's what I was always taught. Pay your dues, set up the ring, break it down. And I used to think, God, when am I going to ever stop doing this? Heck. But then I rent rings and stuff. So I guess that just comes with the territory and stuff. But one thing, we're running out of time, but one thing I wanted to touch on that, yeah, you talked about the award show, and how they used probably the worst footage that they could have used. It reminded me of the time when I was at SVW. This was a January, and I was supposed to face Austin Towers for the belt in the spring. And this was in January. They did a Hall of Fame ceremony there for that show. And in my mind, I did production and filmed for the show, because that's initially how I got on the show, kind of like one of those things to where you have to provide something that might not be working, might be wrestling, but you a way in. And then I started wrestling with Anthony, then I started wrestling, then I did solo stuff. And I had remembered all that, like all the stuff that I contributed, the rise, them prepping me for being the top guy and everything. Um, and then I remembered at the Hall of Fame thing, they were going through all the guys that they were giving the Hall of Fame to, and they would talk about their accolades and their wrestling and stuff. They get to me, and it's like I'm the cameraman. Like they didn't say much of anything about my work in the ring or anything wrestling wise. I was a good cameraman, and I thought, wow, I thought they would say something else, but okay, I'm a great cameraman. I guess I'm just too good of a cameraman or too good of a production guy. But it kind of made me feel like, well, that was my role at that company. So I thought, then why are you prepping me to be the guy? But then it all came out eventually anyway, because I never got the opportunity to be the top guy and
Yeah.
nothing personal. I don't, there's nothing personal. I don't sit there and think about that. Oh my God, they mess. No, I don't ever think about that. Like you said, because we have other stuff to center ourselves with.
Yeah,
I've got my belt's at daycare right now, and she'll be home soon. And that to me is worth 1,000 belts, a
yeah,
1,000 top guy promotion statuses or something.
exactly. No, I want
But
to
yeah,
touch on
man.
two things before we cut out because we only got a few minutes.
Yeah.
Going back to the subject of OSWA guys, which Rick had to miss it. He had to be at a show for one of his buddies that had I don't know if he had an injury or what. I think it was Tank. I'm not sure, but they had a
Yeah.
benefit show for one of their guys. Um, and he missed it, but he listened to me one time, and I was like, I'd like to work Marcus Adams for the NCW heavyweight title. And he listened, and he was like, "Bring him in." I guarantee one of the best matches ever in NCW history.
I was
You were
there.
there.
I was
You
there.
were
I
there,
was there.
and it was so. It wasn't about me that night. To me, it wasn't. When we got backstage, everybody's like clapping, everything. We waited on Marcus Adams when he walked through the curtain. Tears started flowing from every wrestler in the locker room, and I'm like, two OSWA kids that no one cared about 5 years ago just went out there and had that kind of it hit me, and I got emotional. Marcus fell to his knees, and another thing is, Rick commented on a post the other day. Don't forget about Marcus Adams. I'm talking about one of the top guys, and if Rick says it, it's got to be. But Rick went back and watched that match, and he was super excited about that match. Everybody talked about it for months. I still watch that match when I get on the treadmill. Every time I get on the treadmill, I watch him and me and Caleb Crocker because Caleb Crocker's he's a savage, man. He's the best in the ring.
Yes.
And two shout outs I want to do is the bells. If it wasn't for the bells, I would have never even became a wrestler. And to
Yeah.
be as good as I am, to come from Gray Bell, Billy Bell is, and I'm gonna ruffle some feathers. Billy Bell is the best promoter to ever walk in the state of Georgia, and I love Billy with all my heart. He is one of the best. Shane is like my best friend, and Luca is one of my best friends. I get him to post all those silly things on Facebook just to get ruffles, but
I know. I love it.
yeah, but keep an eye out for Marcus Adams.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I really like Marcus. He's one of those guys. There's been a lot of guys in the business that I've met, but again, talking about the 95%, the five, you Marcus, a couple other guys, you're in the 5% of people that I feel like when wrestling is in the past that I would still have something to associate you with,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of times we get in here and like I've got my friends, I've got my close friends, I've got my wrestling friends, and there's been people that I thought were my friends past wrestling that aren't really anymore. And I'm talking about JQs.
Yeah,
I love
he's still
JQs. I
my.
still do. I still love
Yeah,
him, but I'm still to this day trying to figure out what went wrong there. Um,
he's
but
just busy. He told me he slips his mind. He don't think about picking up the phone. Because I had to talk with him not too long ago. He's just a busy, and I've seen it. He's busy, but uh, he maybe uses that as an excuse not to pick up the phone. I don't know, but he is having a kid, and I couldn't be more
I
proud of
know
him and his
I'm
marriage.
I'm I want to see that. I want to see again, like we talked about the very first of this. We talked about family, and I talked about, I didn't have a family. I do now. You have a family. This is kind of the whole basis of this podcast is, wrestling isn't the center a lot of times. It can be,
Hmm.
but not for us, and you talk about Scott Mason having a kid and how it's going to change him. I'm
Yeah.
interested to kind of see maybe even if it's I'm just looking through the window, to see how it changes Jake. I'm
Oh,
interested
I
because
will be back full time. Eventually, I will be back full time. It's
yeah,
just I want to focus on bodybuilding, and I want my kids to grow up a little bit more because they're both about to graduate, and Braden's probably going to be a 3-time state champion wrestler. He would have
I
been
hope so.
4, but he got COVID during qualifying.
Yep.
And I took him out of professional wrestling to focus on school and school wrestling too. So, which you know, he had to give up the 2 belts that he was all holding at the time. But
Yep. Yep.
it's
Can you
funny how he
believe he
became
put
a. It's funny how he became a professional wrestler. By the way,
yeah.
he wanted to be a wrestler like me, and I was like, okay, Daddy can't run to the ring if someone's shooting on you. He's like, I can take care of myself. One of the podcasts, you know who I'm talking about, the 2 guys, which I'm not going to mention their name because I don't have beef with them, but they were like, it don't make no sense a 350-pound man can beat a kid, beat him for the belt at OSWA. And what he don't know is the reason he's in the wrestling business is because them 2, that 350-pound man, Justin Sane, wrestled my little bitty 130-pound son, and my 130-pound son whooped his butt.
Mhm.
Not just his butt, so it's nothing against Justin Sane. He whooped 4 or 5 other guys, especially 2 guys that went to college for wrestling. Hope University
Oh yeah.
or something like that. Highlight.
Yeah.
What's the one that Alex Kane and them went to? Life University, is that it?
Yeah. Life. Yeah. Life. Yeah.
Yeah. He whooped college wrestlers and 2 guys that was over 300 pounds. Not just one, 2 guys. And I said, okay,
Yeah.
you're ready to be a wrestler. You can handle yourself if something goes down. So don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. It goes back to looking from the outside in. But that's what I was going to say a second ago. It's like, oh, I can't believe OSWA put a guy, put the belt on the kid and stuff, and he beat a big guy. They're only seeing a portion, But like you said,
Mhm.
Braden, I dare say he's badass. He's a
Yeah.
badass. I mean, looks can be deceiving, and don't judge a book by its cover. But I'd like to think that we know what we're doing. I'll just leave it at that. Like you said, the 2 guys, I don't have beef with them either. I like those 2 guys. I do.
Oh yeah,
I
me
enjoy
too.
listening to them. But I mean, just like I'll admit it too. I'm not always right. They're not
No,
always
me
right. I'm
neither.
not always right. No one's always right. I mean, but anyway, but yeah, I think we're out of time, dude. But dude, I appreciate you, man. I'd love to have you come on here again. I think we have a
Definitely.
ton of crap we can talk about.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, all we really talked about was, family, versus wrestling, and we touched on, just different things. But dude, I'd love to have you back. But I
Yeah,
really do appreciate you.
I could talk about
Yeah,
Marcus Adams an hour alone.
yeah, exactly. I mean, so I'd love to have you again. I do appreciate you coming on here and um, just shooting the shit, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But 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 yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. I gotta head out. Like you said, I got all these other priorities that I gotta do. So can't be doing
Exactly.
podcasts 24/7, right? But
Exactly.
but yeah, man. But I appreciate you, dude. And we'll get off here and I'll chat with you soon.
All right. And I will be back. I will be back to wrestling and not no
Yeah,
showing. I will be back full time eventually. It's just right now
no
I got
doubt.
priorities. So,
No doubt.
all right, man. I
Good deal.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks, man. Trying to figure out how to get this to end this. I think this is the